All right, let's dig in, my friends, to the topic of coronavirus and vitamin D. Here's why I'm doing this today. Medical research is looking at so many different things when it comes to coronavirus. Everything from testing antiviral therapies, looking at convalescent plasma transfusions of antibodies, looking at, are cases more severe in cities with more air pollution versus cities with less air pollution? All of these things are being looked at, and they should be. But when we throw a whole bunch of stuff out, it can be hard to really think through just one element of this. Any of these could be fruitful in thinking of how to treat the virus, but we really want to dig in deeply and think through all of these different possibilities. So one thing that's coming up more and more is the connection between coronavirus deaths and low levels of vitamin D. So let's explore it. Vitamin D is, most importantly for humans, something that helps us absorb calcium, magnesium, and phosphate. And humans can get vitamin D from the sun. You go outside, you get it from UV light, and from very few foods. Fish is the big one. Sometimes mushrooms, if the mushrooms have absorbed UV light as they were growing. There are many countries that when you buy milk, the milk is reinforced, supplemented with vitamin D. Some breakfast cereals are supplemented with vitamin D. Okay, vitamin D has been controversial over the years. For a while, it was very much in fashion to do a significant supplementation of vitamin D. Then we learned more about high vitamin D toxicity, and so we've backed off of that a little bit. But for a while, if you were below 30 nanograms per milliliter, let's just call it 30, right? The exact measure doesn't matter, but if you were below 30 in vitamin D, you were considered to be low and should be supplementing. More recently, 20 to 30 has sort of been considered okay. And a lot of people now say, a lot of medical professionals say, you really only need to supplement if you're below 20 nanograms per milliliter of vitamin D. There's not 100% agreement on that. There's also the general idea, although the specifics are always complicated, that low vitamin D can increase all-cause mortality. Basically, low vitamin D can make you more predisposed to die, and that you are generally more susceptible to diseases of various types if your vitamin D is low. So how does this relate to coronavirus? Well, it relates because we now have a bunch of studies that have found correlations between coronavirus deaths and serious cases of coronavirus and low levels of vitamin D, particularly with levels of vitamin D under 20, to some degree, people with vitamin D between 20 and 30, and very infrequently are the deaths happening in people with a vitamin D level above 30. Now, right away, our critical thinking skills should kick in and say, David, is this correlation or is this causation? And that's exactly the right question, because if this is causal, it would imply that if you take vitamin D and raise your level to 30, your odds of dying from coronavirus or having a serious case go down dramatically. But we don't know that. We don't know that. It is possible that the people who died with low vitamin D died because of some third factor that causes low vitamin D. Let me give you an example. If I'm suffering from severe cardiovascular disease and I am inside a lot because my mobility is decreased, I could have a predisposition to die from coronavirus because of the cardiovascular disease. And I might have low vitamin D because I'm not going outside very much because of the cardiovascular disease. In other words, if you have cardiovascular disease and you take vitamin D, you might not be protecting yourself from a coronavirus death. We don't know is the point. What does the scholarship say so far? We have a bunch of different studies we can look at. There's one paper called Vitamin D Level of Mild and Severe Elderly Cases of COVID-19, a preliminary report, looked at 176 patients over age 60 who had severe COVID-19. And indeed, a lot of them had very low vitamin D. Another study called Vitamin D Deficiency as a Risk Factor for Severe COVID-19 looked at 186 patients. And again, they found that the coronavirus patients had lower vitamin D than the median population at large, in particular men. So does this tell us vitamin D protects you from coronavirus? No, it does not. Sadly, no. There's also another complicating factor because there are studies which find that vitamin D levels go down when the body suffers a traumatic event, for example, a surgery. But there's also speculation that if you get a lung infection or lung inflammation, that can reduce your vitamin D. So if that's the case, coronavirus could be lowering vitamin D levels, making the case for vitamin D being a protective force even less clear. If you get a lung inflammation and it lowers your vitamin D, if you then supplement vitamin D, does that protect you? We just don't know. So where do I come away with this? Here's my perspective. And it's not my opinion, it's from what I've read from medical experts. It seems that maintaining a vitamin D level above 30 without going up into the toxic range is generally a good thing. Vitamin D is really cheap. You can get it for free from the sun, taking care to protect your skin, of course. It's one of the cheapest supplements that you can buy. So I recently got an at-home vitamin D test. It was, the end of the Boston winter. I have not been outside as much as I'm outside during the summer, and my level was 30.5, just above that minimum. So I am not supplementing. I eat plenty of fish. I'm spending more time outside now. As long as my level doesn't go super high, there's very little risk and very little cost to ensuring that I maintain above a 30 in vitamin D. Seems reasonable to me. Of course, always consult with your doctor. This is a general consensus from the medical community and not advice for any individual. That's vitamin D and coronavirus. By next week, we may know more.